law. This is a very interesting law. If she says, I need to eat, she feels she needs to eat. So we say that it's not she that wants to eat, that it's the baby that wants to eat, the fetus. If she says she needs to eat, and we see that her face is sort of changing, and we see that, so even if she, or if we see that her face is like changing, we see that she's sort of suffering and she doesn't say anything, so we whisper into her ear and we say, today is Yom Kippur. Because sometimes her mind will be settled by this, and here he doesn't explain it, but the Alter Rebbe does, and it says in the Gemara that it's really the baby that wants to eat. And if you say it's Yom Kippur, it could calm the baby down. But if this does not settle her mind, then you should give her food to eat. But you, first of all, you give her a little bit. For instance, you let her put her finger into soup or something, and then she puts it into her mouth. Sometimes one little drop will settle her mind. If not, then you give her less than what's called kazayas or kosevas, anyway, a small amount, and you'll see how much that is. If that doesn't, then you give her whatever she wants. Then you don't give him to eat, even though he says, wow, I'm really, really hungry, don't give it to him. I remember once I was here in Kfar Chabad, and there was a Chassid, and his name was Rafael Khan. Rafael Khan. Rafael Khan. He lived here not far away from me. He wrote a few books also. He was a messenger, whatever it is, of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. He did amazingly things. Anyway, he was very old. This was already when he was old. Could even be in his last year of life. I don't know how old he is, but he was probably in his 90s, I imagine. In any case, it was hard for him to see. This is not in the last years of his life, not last year in any case, because he eventually became like almost totally blind. And anyway, so the doctor said that he had to eat on Yom Kippur. He was in shul. And I remember they told him that he had to eat. He had no choice. They had to eat. They brought him to eat. And he cried. He wept and wept. The things that he went through in Russia and Siberia not to eat on Yom Kippur. The sacrifice that he made, and now he had to eat. Well, what did he do? It was the law. He had to eat. Okay. If it's possible not to give them all at once, then what you should do, first of all, give them like 2/3 of an egg. 2/3 of an egg is like, I don't know, a piece of bread and a half or something like that. And then that's what it says is a kosevas gasa. It's a little bit more than a kazayas. This is a little bit less than a beitza. Then give them a little bit something to drink. And if it doesn't work, and then give them a little bit more, or try to give it to them slowly, a little bit more. Let's say it takes more than 5 minutes. Once every 5 minutes, give them something, if it's possible. And then it says that the eating don't join up together to be, same thing with drinking. You should drink a little bit less than a mouthful, a cheekful, called the revies, an ounce. And then you should wait if you can wait. If you're able to do this, that's the best. Okay, what about a person that gets bulmus? This means that when a person is really hungry, that his eyes start to get weak. He's not allowed to see. Immediately you give him what to eat. All these people, if you feed him, if a person is really in danger because of this, you can even give him forbidden food to eat. Look in the Shulchan Aruch, and it says, but try, if you give him forbidden food to eat, let's say not kosher food, let's say you're living in a place where there's no kosher food available, right? Only in his house. So then for sure you should try to give him less than a kazayat each time. Okay, what if a person eats on Yom Kippur because he has to? So he makes birchas hamazon. He has to make birchas hamazon before he eats and afterwards. But it doesn't make kiddush. It's Yom Tov, Yom Kippur, but he doesn't make kiddush beforehand. That's too much. And when he makes birchas hamazon, let's say if he eats bread, so he blesses Yalav v'Yavel. If it comes on Shabbos, he also says Ritzei. Okay, but if he forgets, he doesn't have to go back. If he forgets, he doesn't have to go back to eat. What about educating your children? How do you educate the children? So it says like this. If it's a child that's less than 9 years old, then even if they want to fast a little bit, you don't let them do it. So that they shouldn't come to any sort of a danger. But as soon as they're 9 years old, and if they're healthy, then you start to educate them that they should fast a little bit. And they shouldn't eat until a couple of hours into if, for instance, usually they eat breakfast, let's say at 7 o'clock, so give it to them at 9 o'clock. What about putting on shoes? What about washing? This you should educate children, if you can, even before they're 9 years old. Some people have this custom on Yom Kippur, and it's a nice custom to smell sharp things. Some people have ammonia, some people have all sorts of other things, smelling salts. If it's a good smelling thing, then you should even make a blessing. I never saw anybody make a blessing. In order that you should make 100 blessings every day. But in any case, okay, here he's talking about making the blessing brei minei besamim, brei atzei besamim, and things like that. We're really not that careful about it, but you should try to be. If you're smelling something that comes from wood, like a tree, some people say like roses, then you make brei atzei besamim. And if it's some sort of like hyssop, atzei besamim. But if it's some sort of like vine or something that smells really good, then you make brei isvei besamim. And if you don't know what it is, then you make a brei minei besamim. Okay, on Yom Kippur, we do haskaras neshamos, yizkor. Because when you remember the dead, it breaks your heart a little bit. And also because the dead people, their souls, they want to benefit from the holy day also. Like it says, Cheper Am Yisrael, these are the living people. Asher Padita, these are the dead people. So from this we learn that people that have passed away, their souls also have to be refined. And it's a pretty amazing thing. You know, their children are sitting in synagogue and they're serving God. After a person dies, so he hasn't got all these distractions from the world, making money and what people think about me and things like that. And then you start to realize what the truth is, but the soul is eternal. Also, it's a good thing on Yom Kippur to vow giving charity. You should say B'li Neder. And it says that if you also can give charity for the dead people. You could say, if this man was alive, he also will give charity. So I have to give. A living person should give. And you should also pray to God not to be severe on the dead people, like David, that he prayed on Absalom, his son, even though Absalom tried to kill him. His son was killed, right? Yoav ben Surya killed his son. And he prayed that his son made a big rebellion against him, rebelled against the king, wanted to kill him, ran after him. Nevertheless, David prayed that you should, to God, go easy on him. What about righteous tzaddikim that have passed away? They interpose for the good on their offspring and also for all the children. Also on the last day of Pesach, we also say Yizkor. Shamos. Okay, therefore we give also charity on this day for the dead people, that God should remember them for the good. And what about a person that does have a mother and father? They're alive. They should go out of the shul when they read the Shamos. I don't know if any of you have been there, but if you go to, with God's help, for the last few years I went to 770. So the place is packed. It's packed. On Yom Kippur, even now, packed. There's no room. I don't know how many people there are there. I'm not good at estimating crowds, but if, let's say usually 2,000 people will fit in, easily in there. So there's 5,000 people, 4,000. It's packed. And as soon as they say Azkaras Neshamos, all the people who have parents should leave. Suddenly the place empties out 98%. Everyone there is young. Everyone there is young. Only a few people it becomes terribly cold. I stayed there. My parents passed away. I stayed there because there's no people in there. The place is cold like a refrigerator. Everybody leaves. The most amazing thing. I don't know if there's any shul in the world that's like that. Unless it's a shul that was made by young people. But this is a shul that's been there for a long time. Everyone there is young. All the older people, they daven somewhere else. They can't stand the pressure. There's too many people. Also, the first year from the passing of the mother and the father, it's also a custom that you go out of the shul. We don't do it. We stand there. After a person's parents pass away, you should never know. Your parents pass away. In the first year, you stay in shul, but you don't say Yizkor. There's a book called Kerem Shlomo. Okay. What about if there is a circumcision on that day? So you circumcise them before you say Ashrei, after the reading of the Torah. You make a blessing, but of course without a cup. In our custom, they make a blessing on the cup. They give it to a child to drink. Okay, what do? I'll tell you. Let me look in this book here. I have never been in such a situation, but let's see. Here we go. Well, it must say over here. Okay, here he says a little bit different. Listen, about children. It says a boy that's 13, a girl that's 12 has to fast the whole entire day, even if they're very weak. I'm sorry, let's start off over here. Let's start off from the beginning over here. A child that's under 9 years old, you don't have to educate them to fast at all. But if they're 9 and above it and they're healthy, and if they're weak, then if they're 10 years old and over, then you should give them to fast for hours, like we said over here. What about children that are 11 years old? Girls and boys that are 11 years old, they should try to fast the whole day from the rabbis. If they're weak and they can't, so okay, you let them eat. You can even give them to eat, even if there's no danger whatsoever. A child that's 11 or a boy that's 11, a girl that's 12, they're obligated to eat. It is forbidden for I bring it from this book, Shvach HaMoadim. It is forbidden for a grown-up to put shoes on a child, even if he's very small. So therefore, you should have whatever it is, leather shoes or wood, whatever. Not leather shoes, even for a small child, unless he can put it on himself. Also, you should not wash your children, even small children. Don't wash them. Don't smear cream on them. a small child that reached to the age of education. Now, education of Inui could be 3 years old, 4 years old. It says if they're of this age, you can let them eat on their own, but you should not give them food to drink, even just to put in front of them. You shouldn't do it because it is like feeding them. So as they have food, you can tell them, you want food, go and get it for yourself. If you saw a child that eating when he shouldn't be eating, let's say he was 9 years old and older, or he was putting on shoes, or he was washing, so his father should say, don't do it, educate him. But the mother is not obligated to. So it says a sick person, if the bris is in your house, then you put the Sefer Torah back before you go from shul, and then everybody goes over to your house, and you make the bris milah. Okay. Now, in the Musaf prayer, when the Shliach Tzibur bows, says, V'anachnu aleinu l'shabech, and also the Kohanim, and the people, you bow down on the ground. So it says, how are you supposed to bow down on the ground? So let's have a look over here. There was also one part in Rosh Hashanah that we also did it, but I was at home, so I didn't do it. Home alone. Here. It says Korim. I'm sorry, but I didn't tell you about this. It's not essential, but it was a nice thing. And when you're saying on Rosh Hashanah, there's a part, you go down on the ground. So it says the Chazan and everybody else, you don't if the ground is made from stone, then you put a cloth down or something. But if it's not made of stone, if it's made from wood, then you can get down on your knees and bow down, put your face to the ground. Right? And you'll see when you do this, you do it several times when we're in the course of the davening. I don't know if we'll be able to go over it. I don't think we will. Look over in your siddur, in your machzor. It says, at the time of void, you remember? Okay, so it says that you put the cloths down. If the floor is made from stone, then you should have an interposition, because you're not allowed to put your face down, bow down on stone. Okay, then finally we have the prayer of Ne'ilah, the last prayer of the day. And this is when the sun is already on the top of the trees, and we try to say the prayer of Ne'ilah. This is the very end of the prayers. Yes. Namely, it's before Shkia. Before Shkia, around the time when you're lighting the candles, you open up the ark, and before you say Ashrei, and everybody says Ashrei. There in Chabad we say La'ela, La'ela. And this is the only time of the year when we say La'ela, or La'ela, Mikal Chosa, Yishurosa. La'ela. All right. Now, it's a very important thing, I think everybody should know, that you have to look over your machzor before you pray. So go and look at it. The Musaf prayer is very long. The Musaf prayer is very long because it talks about what the Kohen used to do in the Holy Temple. And then it has a whole story about Rabbi Akiva and the other 9 great people that were all tortured to death on Yom Kippur. It's a question if they were all done together or if it was at different times, but in either case, there was. And now they brought the Yehuda ben Baba out and Rabbi Yishmael Cohen Gadol, and they brought all these people out, and now they tortured them and they ripped their flesh and etc. like that. It's terribly, but it's very long. And also in the prayers, which you've probably gotten, anyway, there's the prayer that you pray yourself, and then there's the repetition, which is done by the Shliach Tzibur. You should try to follow along, but you should translate it so that you know what you're saying when you say it. Okay, the last Kaddish that they make, that they sound the shofar. In the last Kaddish that they make, in before Arvit, it was after the Ne'ilah prayer, and by the Rebbe they used to dance. Everyone would dance around. You're supposed to make an Havdalah. You're supposed to try to find a candle, a fire that was going all of Yom Kippur. Find some sort of a candle that's going on Yom Kippur and not on a light that you're doing now. Or someone could light a light from yesterday's. You can have a Ner Neshama. It should be lit the whole entire Yom Kippur. And from that, you can take fire and make a candle, light your candle to make Havdalah on it. You can also take from a non-Jew. You drink and you're happy Motzi Yom Kippur. On Motzi Yom Kippur, it says, go and eat and be happy. It's immediately after Yom Kippur, you should make some sort of preparations to you should make some sort of preparation. Start to prepare for Sukkot, Motzi Yom Kippur. Start to build your sukkah. At least talk about it. It's a very nice, important thing. A lot of people also make Kiddush Levana immediately afterwards. Some people eat things. Ideally, you're supposed to make Kiddush Levana after you make Havdalah, but a lot of people don't. Also, if you're the meal that you're going to eat after Yom Kippur, you should try to put the bread in honey, and you should be very, very happy. Motzi Yom Kippur, and so we have finished the laws of Yom Kippur. Thank God, it was miraculous. We did a little Mishnah, and we did the Torah portion, and we did this. Okay, tomorrow there will definitely be Chassidut, 8:15. Please, everyone, be here. And we'll continue the mimer that we started. I don't know if you still remember the mimer that we learned, Shuva Yisrael. Remember we learned a mimer from the Rebbe that was in Maimorim Aleph? Why does it say Shuva Yisrael? It should say Shuva Yaakov. Do you remember we learned that? We have that. And that we'll learn tomorrow, God willing, tomorrow morning at 8:15. So I hope to see you all. Okay, I promised that I'd tell you a story.